Welcome to another episode of And Nothing But the Truth. I love that title because I do believe there are truths in music, certainly in regards to being taught it and how we learn it. And this little YouTube channel, this little YouTube page, what do you call it, Paul? I'm here with Paul Arntz.
YouTube channel.
YouTube channel. Paul Arntz is the producer of this ongoing episode, so I will do this on occasion and say, what do you think? There are truths in learning bass or being taught bass. There are truths, and I want to share them with you. I have some today, but before I proceed, I would like to invite people to hit the subscribe button, the like button, the alert button, because we're going to, Mr. Arntz and I, we plan on making this a regular event, and we intend to honor the open door policy to answer questions from anybody who posts a question below related to bass education, thoughts that I've shared. You are invited to join in. So let's proceed with today's episode. Now, I saw a very cool bass video produced by Scott Devine, and I saw it on Scott's Bass Lessons. And the video that I saw was similar to one that I used to share in bass clinics years ago. And mine was referred to as the Dow Jones. When I came up with my version of this, I was showing people at the bass clinic, some of you may recall this, that there is a kind of a general process. Now, this wavy arm actually has meaning. I'm going to show you in a moment. But there is a merit in the pursuit of music and a sort of predictable positive outcome by following certain steps. So the Dow Jones, of course, is a financial graph of the market. And if you look at the Dow Jones historically, since its inception, and including several bad crashes, the market has done nothing but go up. It has never permanently planed off or became level. The whole market, since its inception, is almost at a 40-degree rise for the earnings for people that invest in it. So I originally made my little graph I called the Dow Jones in order to show that people will reap in benefits. You're going to benefit. And this is all that I'm interested in, to get to the truths of the benefits of learning properly and well. Now, I'm going to include the link of Scott's video because it was a good one. He shared his ideas. In his case, he did it in the separation of years, meaning a certain procedural improvements in bass players over years. And what I did in my version was to show the procedure and improvement of bass players in weeks. Gives you two concepts to think about, won't it? So here's a link below, and you could click on Scott's and check it out. But now let's proceed into my version, which I called the Dow Jones. So this is the Dow Jones, and I separated it into weeks. So this will be week 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and I'll call it 12. Now, the reason I did this in terms of weeks and not years is because weeks is a concept one can grab. So in the graph of the Dow Jones, everybody who doesn't read and doesn't play better and hasn't struggled with their playing begins right here. And then, in my idea, you're introduced to written music. And what happens is, as soon as you're introduced to written music, your playing is going to go down. It's not going to go up. Why? Because written music is a new concept for people. You can't improve by using a new concept until you understand and get familiar with the concept. So people usually hover for about a month in a lower and more challenged area of playing. But what always happens, and this is practically without exception, by the sixth or fifth or sixth week, players start to improve because now reading and the concepts of it and the benefits of it become clearer. Oh, this wasn't such a good week for me, but look, I got better here. Oh, this wasn't so good. This is better, and so on. If you look at the full graph of the Dow, it's this over time, this thing over time, this 12 weeks over time. That's the indication of musical improvement. The first week, people practice, don't see the improvement, they give up. But this is the indicator that if you keep going, even if you're better here but not so well here, and here was a good one, but this is a bad one, you're going up and down as it should be done. And this guarantees that after 12 weeks, you're going to be better bass players.
Javo312 said, "Hi Jeff, does the proper training you had in classical music with the violin count as this training you recommend, even though it wasn't in your final instrument of choice? I know you had 2 semesters at Berklee and wonder if that was complete in your opinion for the bass. I hope this makes sense, and I find your opinions and the flaws you find in other known bass players' teaching as a positive. How are we to progress if everyone is above question?"
I think that's brilliant. It was sort of the philosophy I had always undertaken. Granted, it wasn't well received, but I named names, which I'll never do anymore. And I did so because people, and I as well, represent the product that if we sell it, we are responsible for your outcome by using the product that we sell you. There are checks and balances and laws regarding the quality of an auto that you buy, the food that you're in a restaurant, the any service of any kind that we pay for. There are laws that make these services mandatory to help people to play better. So there are none for the electric bass, and that's why I went into that path to make clear that certain products, not people, were not giving you the proper service. So, um, to answer the question, when I went to Berklee, I never received a, a good bass instruction. I received astonishing jazz instruction. I received brilliant arranging, writing, composition instruction. I was in an environment where my classmates, or certainly within that period, were Mike Stern, Pat Metheny, Vinnie Colaiuta, Steve Smith, John Schofield, um, Gary Anderson, the sax player, Abe Laboriel was there. There was such a rich community of us who were there for the music, but at the time, the electric bass wasn't, let's say, the first instrument taught by this school. So while I had great teachers who intended to help me on the bass, I never really learned anything. I had to pursue my own avenues. Now, did the viol? Am I getting all this right? I'm getting every question. I need to confer with my colleague here because I forget everything. What month is this? So
It's not important.
it's not important what month it is. To answer the gosh darn question, my violin training made me, and it's literally the reason that I've come to the conclusions about how I think everyone should be taught. Because without it, I wouldn't know what I know. So I'm in a freaky situation that by coincidence, not certainly by my design, I was encouraged to study music since I was 5, and 10 years of a deep immersion into classical music, followed by a self taught approach, which is when I got into Cream and the Beatles, and I had a band or 2 bands on Long Island, and I would be a self taught bassist. And then, as you mentioned, the Berklee time for a couple of semesters So while I didn't necessarily get lessons on bass that helped me, I certainly got a lot of writing lessons. And I guess what I'm sharing is that I'm putting these thoughts together as I go. The violin made me. It made it clear that every instrument, other than the bass and maybe the guitar, it seems, are taught the same way. There's a narrow principle of teaching, with almost without exception, that every oboist, as an example, is taught the same way. Every clarinetist, as an example, is taught the same way. Every classical instrument is taught the same way. Why I became a little bit of a pariah in the bass community by sharing that the teachers that certainly meant well, but these teachers did not offer the quality of instruction that I felt was going to help people to play better. And if you think about it, how can you know if what you're receiving is good or not? Most people don't have that background. And because most people don't have that background, hey, Duke, I had a dog come in. His name is Duke. Duke the dog, we call him Duke of Earl,
Duke.
Earl.
Duke, come on. Come
I like this dog.
on. Come on, doggy.
All right, I love you too, but
Duke.
there's 10 million bass players in Asia watching me now.
Duke.
You're gonna have to go.
Come on. Come on.
That stays in, by the way. That stays in. That's human. So, how can people know that they're getting taught properly? Essentially, people can't know. They're trusting the word of people that they love or admire. And I, from the type of background that I had in music, knew that the lessons were flawed and continue to be flawed. Um, I received a message from a guy. He said that a certain teacher at a school agreed with 95% of what I said, actually. And I gave this thought, and it occurred to me that without a complete and utter dedication, complete and uncompromised dedication to teaching students what they need, not what they want, by teaching them written music that works on every other instrument in Western society, statistically, 5% of the people that are paying tuitions are not going to improve because 100% of the student body anywhere are not being taught the way they should be taught so they can improve. There's too many open, what is that, loopholes and things. Well, some people learn this way, some people learn that way, but everybody was taught to read and write mostly the same way, and it works. Everybody was taught in classical music mostly the same way. So I hope I answered your questions by giving a little bit a deeper substantive explanation that my violin training made me. And if people didn't begin in a classical way, because that's really the formative area that we begin in, you can't know what I know. And I'm no better than anybody else, I'm no smarter than anybody else, but I have insight that was the outcome of the greatest music education I ever had. Now, you don't have to be intense about it. I became an intense musician because that was my cutout. That was my my idea. But when people go to YouTube, or when people go to teachers, or when people go to events and gatherings and hangs, people aren't going to play better, and they're going to be entertained. And if that's the intention, of course, people should be entertained. If that is the intention, I don't have a platform to stand on. There's nothing to critique. People aren't into music. They want to go hang out and jam and hang and take photos. Fair enough. I have nothing derogatory, negative, corrective to say about that. But where I stand is that the way we improve, and the way you will improve, is by taking bits and pieces, or having someone teach you bits and pieces, because that's how we improve. By this week learning this week learning that. And if you can tolerate these sort of little increments of musical perfection, in a year you're going to be different, as shown in my little Dow Jones demonstration earlier.